be to worry about, or players returning?
No, it's only Mam's youth. I think had a hamstring strain at the week in the previous game. So Mam's one obviously we've got to be aware of. I think it's an interesting one, the cup game, because you always look at this stage. First game, I think you look for continuity in your team when you haven't been doing so well. I think in this one, what we've got to try and do is balance off, because it's a Wednesday night game, which it sounds ridiculous, but that extra 24 hours just means that you do have to start to think about, how can you make good decisions, which leaves you with some freshness in your team for the weekend's game also. So I think we'll mix the team up. I think there'll be opportunities for some players who I think have been very patient. Some very good players as well. So I expect us to put an incredibly strong team out full of recognised players, but also be one or two opportunities for players.
How important is this game in terms of following the result, the performance last Saturday? How important is this to try and put that behind you?
I think every game's important. I don't think you can ever prioritise how important one is. I mean, we went into Saturday's game on the back of a reasonably good run in 5 games, and then such as the start to the season we've had, that another poor performance just then gets sandwiched onto the back of all the other ones. So but I don't think I still think we have to be sensible. I still think we have to look at what's required. We've had 3 games in a very busy period of games, but 3 games in a week, which put a strain a little bit on some of the players, which I think maybe we lost a little bit of energy on Saturday at certain points. So I think we just have to make good decisions. I think whatever team we put out, it's a separate competition. It's a one-off game, that we view it as a one-off game. I think it's a nice distraction in some ways from the league, and it allows us to go into a game perhaps. Although we want to get a result, because we don't want to lose games of football, it allows us to go out there and maybe give 1 or 2 players a bit of exposure that they might not have had previously.
Considering how things have gone, as you say, a couple of decent results before Saturday, but has that been a real setback in terms of the mood amongst your team?
I think if you're manager of any team will say that if you lose a game when you've in the manner that we did, not only the way that we ended up 3-0 down, but also the fact that we could have come back and certainly got something out of the game, if not give ourselves a chance to potentially win the game towards the end, because we had the crouchy chance and obviously the penalty miss. Of course, it's going to affect the mood a tiny bit, but players are resilient, staff are resilient. This division's about bouncing back quickly, and that's what we intend to do. It's nice that we got a game so soon in some ways. It gives us the opportunity to do that. But of course, it was disappointing to. I think the previous 5 games we conceded 4 goals, so you can see that if the balance goes that way and we're a little bit more solid, then we can win games, and we're creating plenty of chances at the moment. And I think it's just really trying to get that base on a more consistent level to give us a chance to win more games.
After Saturday's game, you did have some things to say about your players, some of them. Is there an issue in terms of your relationship with any of your players? Has that created any sort of kind of issue in that respect?
No, not at all. I think that I mentioned. I think when you've lost a game and some of the same things have happened continuously, of course I'm like anyone else. I get frustrated. I get annoyed. Part of my press conference afterwards, of course, there's a little bit of anger there. So sometimes you might say things that perhaps in retrospect you wouldn't say. I think at the same time in this sort of moment, people are going to jump on stuff you do say, and I respect that and I appreciate that's my responsibility. I mentioned Ryan for the second goal. It wasn't I didn't hugely criticise him, and I think what ensues then is 2 or 3 articles about it, which in fairness to him, whilst I'm sure he'll say that his form can improve and a lot of the other defenders can improve, he's also been a very, very good captain for this club over the last 10 years, and I think what we should do as well is show that respect, I think, rather than jumping on what I've said and throwing in lots of different articles about him. But I appreciate that's the way things work. But that certainly wasn't my intention. But no, I've got no massive issue with lots of individuals in the squad. You know, if I think they can do better, of course I do. And I think can we improve on our results? Of course I do. Is it frustrating that our defensive base has not been as good as I would have hoped it to have been? But like I said, after the weekend's game, I take responsibility for that. I'm the manager. The buck stops with me, and I'm happy. That's why I'm in the job. You know, if I'd have stayed as an assistant manager if I didn't like the pressure or want the pressure, that's part of the job. That's part of what you put yourself up for. But yeah, certainly when you're losing games, it's it's easier for people to take your words and use them in a very negative way.
You knew when you came here the expectations would be huge, and you're aware of that, I'm sure. Because it hasn't been a start that maybe many people would have been expecting. Does that put pressure on you? Do you feel any pressure?
I don't think, honestly. I mean, I remember the second game in as Burton caretaker manager, and we lost 7-1 away from home at Bristol Rovers, and after that game, you know, I felt as though there was a huge pressure to improve the situation. And I think I've probably been in a similar situation about 20 times in the last 5 years, where if you don't win a game, you're disappointed. If you don't start the season well, you're disappointed. But I've also had the scenario where I've been on a run where we've conceded 1 goal in 15 games from open play. I've been in a run where we've lost 1 game in about 18 matches. And I've still felt under pressure, because ultimately you need to win games. Any managerial job, you're defined by the games you win. You know, because that's how people view it. And you also appreciate if you don't win games. Listen, I'm disappointed with the start we've had. You know, I think that you know, my job, certainly I can improve what we've done because the results dictate that. So, but I don't really feel huge pressure. I feel a little bit of disappointment and a real determination to try and get through this situation and get through this period, because I know the team, you know, the team's capable of so much more, and I believe, you know, if we can become a little bit more solid on a consistent basis and sort out some of the poor goals that we conceded, I believe that we'll climb the table.
We're still seeing some teams signing free agents at the moment. Is that something you'd be considering at all? Do you need to do that?
I think it's something we'll consider, but at the same time, at this stage, you know, I don't know if necessarily signing someone who hasn't trained or played for 3 months is always going to be the answer. I think if you feel like there's no other solution but to try and do that, of course you have half an eye on what's available out there. But I still believe we've got the players in the building to sort the problem out. I still believe the players in the building that have been in the team can improve their performances. I still believe we can do more work to help them improve their performances. So yeah, at the moment, I think the main focus is really on to find the right balance, to find the right consistency in our game, to give the forwards a chance, because at the minute the forwards have scored goals and the attacking players have done their bit, and you know what's tended to let us down as a team is just conceding silly goals, which I think everyone will be aware that we're trying to change.
Ita Crank has suggested he'll make a number of changes to his team tomorrow night. What do you expect from them? Is it difficult to know what you'll get from them?
I think it's always a tough one, because I mean, often the day before a game or 2 days before a game we'll prepare for the opposition. I think it's easier to do that in the league because you've got, you know, 4, 5, 6 games in which to see some consistent things that happen in games that you can start to plan really well. The cup games are always tough because sometimes teams can make 10 changes and completely change the way they play. Sometimes teams will still play exactly the same way and make some changes. So I think what you tend to do is you give your players an idea of what you think the opposition will do. But for these sort of games, you tend to focus on what it is you need to do. You know, Forest are a good side. Aitor's done a good job there. Took him a while to stabilise what they were doing. I think they signed something like 10 or 11 players last January, then went again in the summer. So it's took them some time, but they've got some very talented players and a big squad like us. So I'm sure they'll make some changes. You know, as we will do.
And given your previous club, are you expecting a rough ride from their fans?
Well, I'm under pressure now, aren't I? Because if you remember rightly, against Derby, they gave my trainers a little bit of stick. I tried to give them a little bit of stick back, tongue in cheek, and we had a little. Listen, there's not enough banter in football, is there? Sometimes it was nothing intended. So I might have to go in tracksuit and trainers, just to give them nothing to aim their abuse at. So yeah, I'm sure. But then probably I'm going to get stick off Derby fans as well. So I haven't got really anywhere to hide at the minute, have I? So anyway, yeah, it's all good fun.
The big question is, have your players been practicing penalties?
Well, I read some of the statistics. I weren't quite sure that it was quite so bad myself, actually. But no, look, I think if you look at the situation on Saturday, Bennick's our penalty taker. I spoke to Incy about if Bennick's not on the pitch and you take penalties. I think, to be fair to Sido, because he was in a good frame of mind and he scored the goal, he picked it up, and Incy said he didn't really want to at that point wrestle it out of his grip and make a big scene. So your hope is that the confidence Sido showed that he would score the goal, because you know the stupid bit about it is, had he have put the penalty away, everyone would be talking about what a great turnaround in form Sido's had this season, and how he's worked hard to change his situation over 2 years. As it is, it's small margins in football, but sometimes, you know, the lick of paint turns the game the other way. But I can assure you, in the next few games, that we will have a list of about 7 different penalty takers in order. If someone's nearest to the ball, they can take it. If someone's yeah, we'll be suitably prepared. Usually, there's not many teams will name 3, 4, 5 penalty takers just in case, but when you've had a situation that we've had, of course, you have to look at those details a little bit more. Someone still has to then execute the spot kick, which, of course, at this club at the moment, we've not done particularly well over the last few seasons.
If it goes to penalties tomorrow night, everyone's ready, then?
Everyone will be ready. Look, I've had it in different scenarios where you can practice them. I've had it at clubs where I've seen teams keep a club behind before playoff games and keep the fans behind to recreate penalties in one end. It makes no difference, in my opinion. It's about nerve, it's about bottle, it's about handling the moment. You can practice technique, but it's very difficult to practice technique under pressure, and that's a very, very different thing. So our players will be ready, you know, and we'll hopefully we won't get to that point.
Okay, thank you.